Super, thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Ingen. My name is Jacqui Clinch. I'm a paediatric rheumatologist and for young people and young adults, looking after musculoskeletal problems. And part of my job with that is leading a pain service in Bath, called the Bath Centre for Pain Services. So an overview of this session, I'm very aware of the moderating pressures, so please do keep me to time. It is really thinking about OI and pain and what it means to us as health professionals, but more importantly to everyone here in this audience who lives with pain, the lived experience of pain. And it's as previous speaker said, it's so different for so many people. In medicine, we're really good, I think, at diagnosis of different diseases. We're good at researching certain drugs to address certain parts of diseases. What we're not good at is listening to people's experiences, particularly with pain and the impact of pain. And so these are some of the quotes that I hear and my colleagues hear from all the young people we see who have rare bone disease. And this is really important. And I think the one that is really sad to see is that people don't believe me, pain is invisible. I've got my bad pain days are overwhelming, but I don't have a scar, I don't have a swollen joint, I don't have a rash, but actually I can't move, I cannot get out of bed. And then the questions come, okay, so why is, and again we heard a little bit before, why is it there? Why do people with mild osteogenesis imperfecta have pain that is overwhelming, where some days young people with more severe OI actually can do a full-time job and not take any days off where they need to stay in bed for long periods of time? Why is that imbalance? The severity of an illness or a disease does not correlate to the severity of the pain. And that's really apparent, but we do not understand it. I'll whiz through these, but please do find me at any breaks, and I'm happy to talk further. So this is the what list. What types of pain are there, which is what I'm going to talk about, what processes and what aspects around the bone problem itself can cause pain and disability, and how can we rehabilitate, and we'll hear about this later. I'm going to use two cases just to lodge this in our minds. This is a 17-year-old lad who has OI. He had lots of bisphosphonates when he was younger. He had lots of rodding when he was younger. The rodding stopped and the bisphosphonates stopped, and he did not have any long bone fractures, but my goodness, he lived with difficulties with his back, the wedge fractures, and the different types of pain associated with vertebral changes in OI. And he described his pains as two types. One, radiating down his legs, burning, sharp, actually like a lightning bolt. He was an artist, he is an artist, and draws fabulous pictures, really describing this lightning bolt, what we understand as neuropathic pain. And also he had a deep, constant gnawing that was there all the time, that he lived with. This is another case, 28-year-old woman who has a milder, so-called milder, what is milder? That's a discussion in itself, milder type of OI, and she had marked hypermobility, that laxity that comes with a collagen problem. Had some long bone fractures, but nothing recently. But what she described was constant and overwhelming pain in her lower back, using crutches, often in the wheelchair. Often the whole body felt like it was just one big painful experience. Not sleeping, gets to sleep about 3 or 4 in the morning, wakes up unrefreshed about 11, socially not able to do what she wants to do with her friends, physically inactive. Often gets a lot of gut pains, headaches, feels sick, very dizzy, really has days where she cannot function. Feels quite judged, actually, goes to her medical appointments, her other appointments, and actually sometimes feels judged by some of her friends because they see her one day actually okay and the next day really not okay. And it's difficult to communicate that when you're in constant pain. Feels disbelieved. So let's think about bone first. I'm going to start inside and go out and talk a little bit about the physiology, how the body works with pain, to do with rare bone disease, osteogenesis and osteogenesis imperfecta, but then really try and look at the whole picture, because that, again, as we've just heard, is much more important than understanding all the cytokines, all the inflammatory stuff that goes with pain. Apologise, a little bit of a biological, A-level biology picture. My youngest is going through his A-levels at the minute, which in the UK is quite a stressful exam. He's got biology today. So let's start with the easy bit, mechanical destruction. So OI, osteogenesis imperfecta, fractures are part and parcel, particularly of the younger person's journey. Microfractures, macrofractures, small fractures, large fractures. And unsurprisingly, this not only causes the shearing effect of the bone, but also you get a swelling around the healing bone. Both processes cause a lot of pain, so-called more nociceptive pain, so that very deep, very difficult, acute pain that can become chronic. Some fractures, they heal, but you're left with a dull ache in that place where that fracture is healing, and that can go on for some time. You can also have an altered sensation around bone around fractures, but also around when there's no fracture, but the bone is hurting. I don't think we understand that completely, but you get this altered proprioception. I don't know if any of the lived experience people in the room have noticed that sometimes feel a little bit more clumsy, sometimes don't quite know what the limb is doing, sometimes you just get an altered sense of movement with your musculoskeletal system. Also temperature regulation. Now, surrounding the bone is a periosteum. This is your outside layer of the bone. That has a rich pain fibre supply. So if someone has an infection in the bone or a cancer that spread to the bone or a difficult operation around a bone, then that periosteum gets disturbed in all of those events. And that stretching of that cling film-like layer of the bone is extraordinarily painful. It's got a very, very rich pain fibre supply. So post-operatively or after infection or after difficult bone trauma, that's exquisitely painful. Then, of course, you can get nerve entrapment, particularly if you've had back problems and the vertebral collapse. You can get the nerves entrapped, difficult breaks, difficult surgery. You can irritate or damage nerves, and that gives rise to more of a neuropathic pain, that sharp, burning, irritating, lightning-like pain. So many pains around the bone itself. So it's not surprising. It's more surprising people don't get pain, to be frank. And this is a kind of computer-regenerated picture showing how you get that sensory nerve proliferation around the periosteal area of the bone. So it becomes alive with pain. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, just to say that we know in the pain world that different types of pain and a flooding of pain, particularly in the developing young person brain, and all the brains develop until you're 25. Sadly, for me and some people after in the audience, after 25, it stops developing and then it goes downhill. But what we know is if you have a flood of pain, particularly if you have a lot of trauma in the first few years of life or in early life, then the brain can do amazing things. It can amplify pain, because pain is a network and it's integrated with other sensory sensations coming in, temperature, etc., movement. So it can amplify pain. And also in some cases it can kind of dull down pain. So you get an altered response to pain, and this is all termed as a central sensitization, and as we heard earlier, neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to adapt or promote pain signals depending on the trigger. And that pain can last much longer than the trigger that starts it off. It's a little bit like a pebble coming off a mountain, the whole avalanche afterwards. I'm happy to go through this slide in break. I won't spend time at the moment. But what about around the brain? So in osteogenesis imperfecta particularly, it's like a toxic storm with pain, because you've got the bones that are fragile, you've got a supersensitized system, you've got a brain that's developing, and then you've got the collagen effect on the muscles themselves and the ligaments. So not only have you got the bone problem, but you've also got a really lax system around the skeleton. We're the only mammals that reliably stand on 2 feet. So right from the get-go, we have to be symmetrical. Otherwise, we fall over. And that's not great if you've got a fragile skeleton and you've got really bendy joints and a loose ligaments. So the strain on that skeleton to keep that, and the musculoskeletal system to keep it upright is enormous. And so the young people I see who are trying to walk, who always go over on their ankles, who back knee, who have real hollow in the back here, all because of that looseness of the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments. often get a lot of pain in hinge places, outside the hips, lower part of the back, upper part of the neck, around the shoulders, and around the ankles, where all the load is taken. Added to this, if you're trying to stand up on two legs and balance as you're growing, and you've got vertebral problems because of the OI, you very quickly get a scoliosis. And that itself, again, puts pressure points, and you get this mechanical pain that can be overwhelming. Long car journeys, cinemas, sitting down for a long time in the morning, that's when it's excruciatingly painful. And that's when people have a lot of problems. You won't doubt that these people are not hypermobile. You can see here back kneeing, so you can see quite clearly, if you look at the mechanics, all the weight goes through the front of that knee can get extraordinarily painful. This elbow, very hypermobile, and there are also a lot of problems with subluxations, joints coming out, kneecaps going for wanders around the knee. All of these things can cause a lot of discomfort. And that's because of the collagen, and you know this better than I do. The collagen is not structured in the same way, and so the joints are phenomenally lax. I don't know if any of you are particularly clumsy when you were a young person, but I hear this constantly, tripping over fresh air. The thought of being able to control your body, it's more challenging for all the reasons we've talked about. And then added to that, as we've heard before, just a little while ago, is that you've got all of these painful events, and that makes you, me, anyone with persistent pain more anxious often. It's harder when you've got a lot of pain to get out there. It's harder to meet friends. It's harder to stay the long day in work. It's harder to sleep. And all of this feeds into pain. It doesn't cause it, but my goodness, it complicates it. If you're feeling low, if actually your mates are clubbing and you're not, if you're missing out on the gossip, if you're not in the lessons that you want to get to, if you're not going to the meetings that you're interested in, that makes you feel very isolated, very low. And as I say, it does not cause pain, but it complicates how you move forward with pain. Pain also has a phenomenal effect on our biology. So if pain is the biggest stress on our system as mammals, and on a bad pain day, the body reacts to try and protect itself. And the way it does this is very sensible, but it can be very bothersome. So it's not unusual for people to feel their heart race and to feel really sweaty on top of the normal sweatiness that young people with OI feel. Breathing becomes quite laboured, vision can get blurred, people get very nauseous, very pale, very dizzy, often faint. It can also affect your gastrointestinal system. Blood goes away from where it's not needed when the body's under stress, and therefore abdominal cramping, irritable bowel syndrome, pins and needles peripherally. All of this is all part of the biological response to pain, but can be really bothersome again. That tired, dizzy, nauseous, stomach crampy, headache, poor memory, all of this is part and parcel when you have a pain flare. So this is what it affects. Everything. I don't need to go through that slide, but my goodness, on some days it's overwhelming. Thank you, I'm nearly there. There's a talk on measurement and assessment. I think we can do an awful lot of measuring and assessment, and it's really important. And Ruben's going to talk as well about the impact of what we know, what we've measured already within OI. These two patients of mine, my goodness, when I was first consultant 25 years ago, Patsy on the right has got systemic onset juvenile idiopathic arthritis, essentially a childhood form of very difficult arthritis. She scores her pain as 7 out of 10. Patsy gets to school. She has a helper in school, and she goes to sleepovers, which are important to her. The patient on the right, on your left, has a pain condition. Also scores pain of 7 out of 10. Person on your left, the legs, doesn't get out of bed, has not been out of bed for 10 months. Both scoring 7 out of 10 is meaningless. It's meaningless unless you know the person. It's meaningless unless you have an impact, an idea of impact. So lots of assessments. I'm not going to go through these that measure impact, and I think we're going to hear about them. But what I implore to all health professionals, and I know it's a biased audience, you're already here because you want to listen and have an empathy with pain. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. So we need to get this message out. But the main thing from a health professional point of view is listen, listen, listen. And put time aside for that listening, because then you get to know the young person or the older person, and then you can plan. And this is essentially what we need to think about. We need to do things together. We need to anticipate. People with OI are going to have problems in certain areas, but we can work with and develop strategies so that the quality of life is good. So anticipate where something might be painful, and use medications where we can, but they're limited value. And I'm sure anyone here who's had medications for pain will say that they're limited. And think about rehab, and think about further research. Analgesics, a recent Cochrane review we did globally showed there's a lack of evidence for analgesia in chronic pain in young people. We don't have it. We do know that rehab is vital. I love this slide because this is when I went to talk in the US recently. This is a fitness centre with an escalator, which I thought was fantastic. Ultimate pacing. But key, pre-op and post-op is important, and just increasing the fitness of everybody generally. Predict rather than react. And support. And psychology is key to support everybody with chronic pain, no matter what the cause for it is, in whatever illness, to move forward with strategies to do with their life what they want to do. And this is really vital. So that we can do this. And actually make pain a very small part. So that everything else, turn it upside down. So that people live their life with the pain rather than directed by it. So I'll stop there, and happy to take any questions or in the break.